Welcome to the Brand Doctor Podcast, strategies that help entrepreneurs build reputable and profitable brands. Here's your host, Henry Kaminski Jr.
Go live. So welcome everybody to the Brand Doctor Podcast. I have another amazing guest on today's show. We linked up on Facebook. We have some mutual friends. And I was like, dude, I did my research on this guy. And I was like, this guy is definitely one of those inspirations that I got to have on the show. And he's just been a very, very successful entrepreneur. And without further ado, let's introduce Pejman Ghadimi. What's going on, my man?
What's going on, buddy? I appreciate you having me on your show and excited to be talking branding, business, and everything in between today.
I love it, man. I listen. If I want to talk to somebody right now when it comes to growing your business and brand, it's you. So for those folks that don't know who you are, I want to take them back to the beginning. I want to know where you got this passion and how you started your business and how it grew to this size.
Well, I mean, I have a lot of businesses, so it's kind of hard to say like, oh, one business grew to this size or not. But I think, which is actually really interesting because a lot of people online know me for all my businesses that are online, because obviously those are the popular ones that people see me on, that I do ads for, etc. But my real brick and mortar business is actually something that I started when I was very, very young. And it's my biggest business called VIP Motoring. Which is ultimately the world's first investment fund that allows people to put their money in alternative luxury assets like art, watches, and cars. So I acquire very rare goods. People invest in it. They don't take it. They don't buy it. It's not like a dealership or anything. And then it's an investment channel for people that don't want to invest in the stock market or already have enough of the traditional investment type to be able to put that in. And I started that originally when I was about 14 years old as a car wash, and it evolved into a tuning shop, and then further evolved into somewhat of a mini brokerage firm. And then over time, when the recession hit, it became what it is, which is today known as VIP Motoring since 2005. Mm-hmm. But since that business, I've kind of one day woke up and I said, you know what? I want to be known for something more than just money and cars and luxury assets. Mm. And so I literally overnight quit my business, put a CEO in place of it because it was making too much money to just abandon it, and focus kind of my career on teaching, which is something that I was really good at.
Yeah, PJ, what happened that day? Talk to me about that day, because that's a big turning point for you.
No, it's one of these things where I lived in Northern Virginia, and, that's a very boring and conservative state, meaning government state. It's not like Florida or California or anything. It's not a lifestyle state, right? And so what happened is that I literally used to go, I was young, right? I was very young, and I always had Lamborghinis since a very young age, et cetera. And I ended up going to I kept going out and partying and everything. And then I realized that the only way people knew me was just because of my cars and the things I had. They were like, oh, I only know this guy because he has this Lamborghini, he has this, he has that. And so it kind of started hitting me that I was like, the only people that really would probably share my story with their kids or the impact that they've had in their lives was really the people that where individuals back in my banking career, I had helped from nothing get to a place of leadership or management, or had given a chance to and coached and mentored and everything in between. And so I just realized I've always had a gift for teaching, and I just never really understood how to bring that gift out. But I understood that teaching was where the biggest impact was that I was making in people's lives. And so even though my business was flourishing, was making a lot of money, we've had such hardships growing up that I just kind of I kind of decided that I wanted my life to mean more than just making money. And so I literally woke up and decided to take this shift and head towards kind of building, at the time, which I had no idea how to, building online brands that were focused around teaching people a lot of different things, starting with business, starting with the idea that anything's possible, awareness, mindset, and then further over time, as we got better with this idea of teaching online, everything into the luxury assets and luxury investing platforms, similar to what I do in real life, onto the do-it-yourselfers for people who want to do it at home.
Got it. Okay, well, that makes sense. So now fast forward. So now you make that shift, And now what do you start to develop?
No, so, about 9 years ago, I made that shift, right? So I decided about 9 years ago that I was going to focus on teaching. And so it took me 7 years to figure out how to teach online.
Okay.
And I know that's kind of sounds long, but it really wasn't that long, because I've had friends do this and, they've been doing it for 20 years and they just figured out how to crack the code after 20. Mm-hmm. So in 7, I was like, I'm ahead of the curve, even though it seems like a long time, but in 7 years, I figured out all the angles I needed to really understand how to get people to want to learn online, and how different that was than selling things in person, which are very, very different when you're selling, $1 million investments to people one-on-one versus trying to persuade someone to invest in their own education, for a fraction of that, for like $90 or something, which would seem to be easy, but it's a lot harder, it's a lot different. And so, it took me a couple of years to figure that out. And then after a couple of years went by and I really figured that out, that's when I was able to duplicate that model over and over with, a dozen other platforms, just coming out every year after year with new principles and new teachings.
Got it. So what are you focused on today, and what's your purpose? What are you doing? What problem are you solving, and what kind of legacy are you building?
So that's a really good question, right? Because I'm not a big believer that you always have to solve very large problems. I'm a believer that you can sometimes facilitate better solutions to existing problems. So in other words, like Facebook wasn't the first social media platform, right? Like they didn't invent social media. They just made it. They allowed technology to meet software and hardware to a point where everybody could access it, use it, and they made it easy for everybody to understand. So, they facilitated that process. They didn't create a new solution to a problem that didn't have one. And I think for me, from a very, very early stage into this online kind of business model, it's always been one sole purpose, and it's to facilitate making education affordable and accessible to all across the country and all across the world, not at a fraction of cost and without the fluff. Mm-hmm. So in other words, actionable education that people can access at a fraction of what it would cost to go to school, and that they can apply instantly. Mm-hmm. And more importantly, education that is not so focused on trends. Because I think too many times teachers, which are not really teachers, they're more marketers out there, focus so much on this new thing happening, like crypto's current. So like, we're going to talk about that and we're going to milk that process. And then the next thing is, something about credit is current. Let's everybody jump on that. And then let's teach stock trading, and let's just market whatever the hot thing is, right? And one of the big things with me is I'm not a marketer, I'm a teacher. So there's a significant difference. I only teach what I've done, and I only teach from experience. And I only teach where I have a track record. So that's a little bit different, because that means that while I'm teaching, I'm also practicing my trade continuously. So the teaching changes over time, right? Meaning I learn more, people learn more as we go, so it's kind of an ongoing thing.
I want to pause right there for a second and just bring that to everyone's attention, because I want to say I saw you on Instagram recently, and I'm pretty sure it was you. You were sitting in your car and you went on like a little bit of a rant.
Yes.
Okay, so I thought that was you. All right, good. So I am a huge firm believer of what it is that you just said, and I only teach what I'm experienced in and what I have a track record for, and I am so anti get rich quick, get on to the next best thing out there, since jumping on the bandwagons and all that nonsense. Like, so the minute you say that, and that's why I had to remove myself from some communities, because it was getting I was starting to get distracted by these folks. And I said, these folks are not my client. They will never be my client. And I need to focus on those folks that are really looking to build a business, build a brand, be around in 5 years, not on to the next hot thing, right? And so I just want to share how important that is to the audience that's watching, that if you're going to get into business, make sure that you're passionate about it, and make sure that you're doing something that you're actually really, really good at. And like PJ said, have a track record of success. That's why PJ's where he's at today, because he stayed in his lane. That's it. Like,
yeah, I mean, you stay consistent, right? That's true. You stay consistent time and time again. You commit to, I always say that the best way to look at business is to figure out what you're really good at, like figure out what your talents are, and then find a way to bring that talent to a person that needs that talent. So I think that's the easiest way to look at business. If you're a talented designer, figure out what you can design, then figure out what people want you to design, find a medium in between where they're willing to pay for it, and then get so good at it that you're no longer asking them to pay for it. They're chasing you to pay for it, and you can't even have the time to do it. So you got to charge them so much money for it to be worth your extra time. That's how I think super talented people leverage themselves to becoming, first they leverage themselves, and then eventually they become a business, and eventually they become a brand, and they kind of, oversee that process instead of work in it over time. But I think good business is an extension of talent. Good long-term business is an extension of a person's talent, and nobody can take that talent away from you, no matter what your idea is around that talent. And I think why so many people are afraid to lose their ideas, right? They're like, I don't want to give away my idea. What if someone steals it? Well, if it's not built off of your talent, then yeah, anybody can steal it, but nobody would want to steal it, right? Because it may not be aligned to their talent either. So I think that's the big thing people forget, is that good long-term business is built on an extension of talent more than anything else. Like I didn't know anything at all about online marketing, about anything about, I don't even know how to use my cell phone, to be honest with you. I'm the last guy to jump on apps. Like people are like, hey, you have this great app that does this. I'm like, what's Uber? And they're like, it's been around for like 8 years, and like you can pretty much order a friend. And I'm like, the guy to the last horse to cross the finish line is saying, fine, I'll use this to get a cab, Like, so, but that didn't stop me from building, a really powerful and effective 8-figure business in online teaching. So what I'm saying is that the point is that it's not about like having all the answers. It's about understanding that my talent was teaching, and how that's delivered to people is a skill that can be learned over time, is a skill that can be partnered with people who are effective at what they do. But the talent, no one can take that away from me. So if someone says, why or what is different about your business? Well, yeah, nobody can teach what I teach the way I teach, because I'm me. Now, the delivery of that product, which could be a book, could be a website, it could be a course, it could be a live workshop or a seminar or webinar, whatever it's going to be, that can be learned, can be mastered, can be effectively transitioned into people who can support those skills. But the essential core of the talent cannot. And so when you find businesses that ultimately use your talents, or jobs even that use your talents, that's when you find massive long-term success.
Yeah, amen. And that's what I try to drill home with my clients is get a skill set, master it, continue to master it, and you will never not have work. And because you just have to, and that's the key to growing your business. Because I tell you right now, I hate to say this, but if ClickFunnels goes away, like there's going to be hundreds of people with no business any longer.
Yeah.
And I love Russell, and I'm a forever fan of his. And, I'm always going to have ClickFunnels inside my business. It's so heavily embedded into it already. It would take weeks to do everything over. So I'm not going anywhere. I love the platform, but I'm using it long-term strategy. Like I'm able to get products and services now to market 1,000 times faster than my competitors, because I'm using the proper softwares to push my skill set, right? And to get that skill set done. And like you said, why should I hire PJ and not Henry, or vice versa? Or no one's going to deliver the same product or service the same way. And you've got it drilled in, you got it dialed in, and you're able to scale this to an 8-figure business because you found the process. So I want to turn the corner here and talk about that for a second. How important is process when it comes to getting to a business size like yours? And I'm talking, you said you have multiple businesses. how important is process in the play of things to be able to run an 8-figure business?
Well, I think first off, the idea of process is what you need to even own a business. I think most people, one of the big things I have when I teach people business or entrepreneurship is that, first off, there's a significant difference between being a business owner and being an entrepreneur. Secondly, there's a significant difference between buying yourself a job, being self-employed, being a business owner, and then being able to say, I own a brand.
So what's the difference?
Well, so first off, when you buy yourself a job, you're doing nothing more than simply trading your time, again, for money in a setting where you are solely responsible for finding a person that is going to pay you for your time. So all you've done is ultimately say, okay, well, I go work at this job here and they pay me $12 an hour. I'm willing to find someone to myself that's willing to pay me $14, $20, or $30 an hour. So, but I'm going to do this instead. I'm going to open a restaurant, so I'm just buying myself a job. Now, when you actually become self-employed, it's the idea that you figured out how to do that enough and you've committed to that process. So you're like, okay, now I understand my craft. I understand my trade. I understand that I'm either a restaurant owner or a chef or whatever it is you do, right? Regardless that you sell your cooking or that you sell the actual product itself, or in a restaurant or whatever else it is. And then when you own a business, that's when you actually have enough of a process going on that enables you to really take a step back and say, I'm no longer managing how to sell my time for money, right? But there's a process that does that enables me to ultimately say everything from the point where I take a credit card to the point where I deliver a product, to the point where I deliver a service. It is all ultimately in a step-by-step basis. So I can teach someone else to literally manage this. And I'm not the central pivotal point of that business anymore. So, like if you're even a chef, if you think about it that way, if you're a restaurant owner, you can still own a business by saying, okay, here are the recipes, here's the process, here's the cashier, here's the service model, here's everything. Now a staff can run that business, even if you're not there 3 days a week. It doesn't mean that you can be an absentee owner, but at the very least, you don't have to be there every single moment because you are not trading your time for money. And a brand is ultimately something that's evolved past that. And I hate it when people say, I'm starting a brand because I have a cool logo and I have an Instagram following. And I'm like, okay, that's completely counterproductive. So brands, to me anyways, are literally things that you have done well enough over time that your customer or your audience recognizes as an attribute to your business. So Apple has designed enough beautiful product that we associate beauty with every Apple product, meaning like we expect it, right? Like now Apple didn't decide this. Apple thought of this, and then the customer made this real by saying time and time again, I agree with this notion, and the majority of us agree, which is why I believe that most people can't really own brands unless they've been around 5 to 6 years and have accumulated a significant level of customers, which those customers have expressed their feedback over and over and agreed to certain attributes. Those attributes become the core of what that brand is known or recognized for. Like we expect fast click checkout with Amazon. We expect simplicity and beauty through Apple. And whatever we do, like again, we have these expectations because enough times has it happened for us that we have agreed that has become an expectation of the brand. So I think this takes time, and it's something that many people don't seem to understand at all, and that you have to go through this transition. So to answer your question originally about the process it takes to run companies like that, I use what I call the radius model. And the radius model is, I wrote a book called Third Circle Theory. It became super popular on self-awareness and awareness. And then I wrote a sequel to that called Radius, which Radius stands for reaching across different industries, uncovering solutions. And the Radius model is simple. So it's the basis of understanding that every single business works off of 5 pillars of business, but also every single business from the point where it transitions to a brand to the point where it can become an empire is built off of one simple formula: the recycling of customers and the recycling of resources. So a very simple example of that. Let's say you have one online business, right? And that online business makes $1 million a year, right? In revenue. We'll just use a very round number so it's easy to understand. That also has a call center, and so it has expenses in marketing and everything else, right, to acquire a customer and everything else. So that business ultimately, while it's making $1 million a year, is maybe netting you like 100,000 if you're lucky, because you have all these expenses, costs, and everything. But if the same resources can then be recycled and used to manage a second business, also doing $1 million, right? Now the expense is shared between the two, right? And now the cost of the same effective leverage is not 50%, but twice the revenue, right? So the point becomes that the same call center can then support 15, 20 different businesses, right? And it can scale much slower than the need at the beginning, where you have to have 5 people to support business one, but adding one can then support a second business in transition with the other 5. So the point becomes that if you can recycle your resources, then you have the ability to start new business verticals without any cost. Like, because obviously the cost is absorbed by business one, who's already eating that cost. So therefore, that's your step one. Your second step is your customers, which, let's say you built a brand or a business around one type of customer, which are males that are 17 to 30 years old, and blah, 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 whatever the attributes are that you're looking for your customer. Well, if you build a second business that attracts the same audience, even if it's not completely unrelated, but you build the same business and you reach out to them and even get 5% of your existing customer base that already trusts in your product services, but now has interest in your new business because they're the same demographic. Now you just pretty much gotten an injection of a huge amount of money right off the top when you launch a vertical, or even validated or disvalidated if a business idea can work without actually working at it. Meaning, like, you can literally send it to your audience and say, hey, do you want to buy this? And if people commit, then you just got an influx of 200 grand in, and you got your first 1,000 customers, right? Like, right off the top, without $1 in advertising, without $1 of resources. So you can literally launch new verticals in business over and over and over by having what I call the perfect process from 0 to 70. Instead of launching a business from 0 and going all the way to the 100% line and looking at an exit, launch a business to 70% of its growth, manage the resources in the client base, start launching new verticals. And because of the effectiveness of your 70% foundational structure, you can literally launch every business at 40% growth right off the top without even having a cost or anything. So you can manage 17, 20 different businesses without even adding an hour of work to your day, simply because they're recycling the same customers and their same resources over and over and over, which are already managed by processes you set in place the first time. So this model, while it takes a lot of time in the first 5 to 8 years to set up in your first business, it can, in 1 year time frame, allow you to launch any business to $1 million in revenue within its first 12 months without having any fear of it potentially failing, because you wouldn't have a cost to failure anyways. Make sense?
This is beast information. This is and so real quick, I want to let the audience know where they can get these books.
Well, they can buy my books everywhere. I mean, Third Circle Theory became like a household name across everywhere. I mean, you can be bought on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, and anywhere else. And Radius, the sequel, just came out about 3 months ago or so. That we've started marketing about 3 months ago. It came out about 5 months ago total. And it's just a sequel to it. I really recommend people read Third Circle before they read Radius. But Radius is a business book. Third Circle is an awareness and self-awareness book. You know, I'm a big believer that the Third Circle Theory is actually something most people skip. What I mean by that in business, everybody's always about action, right? We get on Instagram and the first thing we see is execute. You know, anything without action is worthless. Why are you sitting at home reading books? You should be, executing. And I laugh at that a lot because I'm like, no, part of it, you shouldn't be executing. You should be preparing. And a lot of people don't like preparing because it's boring. And boring is not fun. It's not execution. It's not jump in, have the balls to do everything. It's boring. But the boring part is really what will get you to the 50% line and ensure you don't crash. And what I mean by that is not read more books, but it's this simple. I'm sure you've seen this graphic where the guy jumps off a cliff and is like, entrepreneurship is about learning how to build a parachute along the way, some bullshit like that. You know what I'm talking about, right? So I always tell people, I'm like, okay, imagine you've never seen a parachute. You don't know how it works. You don't even understand the law of gravity. You jump off a cliff. You don't even know if you have the tools in your backpack. What are the odds you're going to learn how to build a parachute along the way and not crash with your head first and die, right? Probably very little to none. Now, what if you're prepared? You know how a parachute works. You take all the tools with you. You take all the materials with you. And then the only way you're really going to know if it works is if you somewhat put it together, then jump and figure out how to patch it so it stays alive until you hit the ground. you're going to have a much stronger chance at actually flying, and landing safely than the guy that crashes and just dies and then can't even get back up and because he's got broken legs or he's dead.
Mm-hmm.
So the point is, a lot of times in entrepreneurship, it's easy to just get caught in the whole glamour of it, and I mean, look, I'm guilty of this too. I leverage a lot of lifestyle to attract people to the idea of entrepreneurship. And I do this because the cartoons, or I call them the monkeys out there, the ones that completely, like they rent a Lamborghini for the weekend, or they drive a old ass 2004 Lamborghini that they bought at the auction for like 80 grand. And they're like sitting there and they're like, hey, look, I got a Lamborghini. You want to learn my tricks of how a 25-year-old afforded a Lamborghini? And it's like, no, nobody cares, but okay. If that monkey is doing that with an $80,000 car, then there's no reason why I can't take $1 million in cars and say, hey, look, you want to learn from the guy that's pretending to just buy a Lamborghini so he can market to you? Or you want to learn from people who have built the skills and the threshold necessary to get to a place where you can choose if you want to afford a Lamborghini or not, right? Like, meaning, and that's the thing, like, people misunderstand that, use lifestyle, and they go, well, I don't want a Lamborghini. And it's like, it's not about buying a Lamborghini. It's about having the choice to buy a Lamborghini and choosing not to, and using your money with whatever you want. Because I agree that not everybody cares for cars, big houses, wealth, or anything. Some people just want to help others. Some people want to be Mother Teresa, whatever they want to do, it's fine. Just do it with money. It works better when you're not poor. If you can't take care of yourself, you can't change the world. If you can't take care of those around you, if you can't build a small company, how are you going to impact an entire, world audience into changing, right? So you can't convince 20 people to buy your product at $20. How are you going to convince an entire country or an entire planet to change the way they do business because of you, because you're an entrepreneur? So the point is, everything has a step-by-step kind of take to it. And just like in life, you can't just go into it and be like, oh, I'm just going to go and learn how to build a parachute along the way and not, kill myself as I crash.
That is such valuable insight. Like, I tell all my clients right away, they come to me all the time. Oh, I need a funnel. I need a brand. I need a business. I need a website. I need a logo. And the first thing I ask them is, why do you think you need that? Well, things are looking a little amateur. Things are looking this, things are looking that. I want to create a higher quality client. I want to attract a higher quality person, this and that. And then I ask them, like, well, what are you doing? What's your message? Like, what do you stay like? And they don't even know who they're serving. And so when I go back to them and I say, you don't need a logo, you don't need a website, you don't need a funnel, you need a message, you need a voice, you need to understand who your clients are. What are you trying to, how are you trying to serve them? How are you serving them better than your competition? And what are some of the strategies to come to market? So like you said, you're not creating a glorified job for yourself. You're actually creating a sustainable business. Nobody wants to do that work.
Well, I mean, that work, it's not that they don't want to do it, is that it's not sexy, right? And that's what it comes down to. It's just not sexy. Look, I get the argument. I mean, you go to your friends and you're like, listen, you take $5,000, you put it in Bitcoin, and next thing you know, you cross your fingers and you hope to God you're going to have 20 grand in your account, That sounds a lot easier and more exciting than when you tell someone, listen, you're going to read this book, then you're going to have to take 5 years to figure out this talent, and then you're going to have to sell it to people, and they're going to have to tell you suck at it until you get really good at it. Then you have to practice again another 5 years. And then maybe after 10, you'll figure out how to actually sell that talent. And hopefully you'll be part of the 5% that made it and didn't crash. And as a result of it, you've stayed committed, and you had a job along the way, and you might have had to go to school simultaneously, and your parents got sick, but you had to look past it anyways. I mean, look, it's not easy, right? If it was easy, everybody would find massive success in it. And it's easy to get lost in the idea that, hey, you see some cool lifestyle stuff. You're like, man, this guy's young. He did it. I started at 14. I was washing cars at 14 because I didn't have a green card and I couldn't get a job. I was begging McDonald's to give me a job to clean the floors for $3. And they told me to piss off because I didn't have a green card. Mm-hmm. So, that didn't happen. And then I had to convince a guy that to hire me would completely bamboozled him, even though I didn't have a green card, to think that I had a green card. So I literally bought myself 6 months until I heard I had one coming. So I was like, okay, maybe there's hope. And maybe that wasn't going to happen, but I still figured out a way to get a job. And at 14, I worked, and I I went to school till 2. I went to work till 10 p.m. I repeated this 7 days a week. It didn't end. And then, I graduated high school with crappy grades. I couldn't go to college. So I figured out how to get myself a bank manager job at 18, which was unheard of. And again, it was like, 50 interviews and 20 convincing people and, going out of my way to figure out ways to be creative, to get in front of the right people. And eventually it happened. And, fast forward, I had to have a job I didn't want, a career that I was really good at that I hated, only to get to a place to just have the base capital to get started. So what I'm saying is that the part people don't understand is they think life starts at that 0 baseline, but life starts at the -100 baseline. We all have thousands of circumstances, reasons why we shouldn't be getting started. But all of us have one opportunity to actually look past that and say, it's not about how difficult it is to get started. It's about putting steps together to getting closer to the starting line, not to get closer to the end line and the money and the success. No, what can I do today to get myself to a position to be ready? How many people hit me up all the time? They're like, can I have $100,000 to start a business? Why would I give you $100,000 to start a business? Go get a job. I'm like, where do you work? They're like, I don't work. I'm like, well, why don't you work? They're like, well, I don't like working. I don't like the careers or jobs that are out there. I'm like, well, who cares what you like? Like, who cares that you like the job or not? Like, why is that a big deal, right? Like, why does that matter? Go become a cashier. Go work at Chick-fil-A serving nuggets. Who cares? Like, just if you need money and you don't have another way to make money, then get a job like everybody else. And when you get a job long enough and you work enough hours and you have $500 to your name, then use that money and invest in maybe a course you want to learn something on, right? And then go back to work and make another 2,000 so you can get the capital to maybe start a dropshipping business or start thousands of businesses in this country you can start with no money to just get your foot out there, learn business, and also just get a taste of creating customers, creating transactions, understanding how to get people through the door. I mean, all of that is progressive, but people don't want that. What they want is they want to start today with, oh my God, I have this great idea that's going to revolutionize the world. And right now I got to go get this started. So I got to find 10 million in investment money. The stars have to align. I have to have 3 perfect programmers. And then that never happens. So you never get started. And then you're like, all right, I'm out. Like, this is stupid.
That is rinse and repeat hundreds and thousands of times a day. Now, my question is, and I'm just conscious of time because I want to keep this under 60 minutes, but like, how do you make that sexy? You don't. And like, so you don't want to bullshit people, but at the same time, you want to keep it real with them. And, my approach has always been this, PJ, like, this is what it is. So if you don't want to do that work, then you better think about if you really want this business to begin with. And if you don't want to put in that work, then just reconsider something else, like you just said. But like,
well, yeah, but I mean, to your point, it's true. You can't make it sexy, right? But the problem is, this is where the fine line comes. We go back to this conversation we had about marketing and teaching, right? This is where that fine line comes in because, a marketer's job is to attract you to a teaching. You know what I mean? But, and they don't really care about the product. They're just like, I'm marketing this. It doesn't even have to be my product, But a teacher's job is to make sure the product is quality so you can take action on it. Like, you learn something real from it. So this is where every teacher has to learn to become a better marketer. And in a perfect world, every marketer would learn to become a better teacher. But unfortunately, that's not the case. So at the very least, I have to be uncomfortable enough to come up with a way to kind of get people's attention. And, I laugh at this in a way, but it's true, man. It's unfortunate that we live in a world like that I can't go up to someone and say, listen, you're willing to commit 10 years of your life and it's not going to be a step-by-step. I'm going to hold your hands. I'm just going to tell you what to read, what to do, and you can go figure it out. And they'll be like, no, this is terrible. But if I go out there and I'm like, hey, do you want a Lamborghini? And you have to follow these kind of instructions, but I'm not going to hold your hand. Oh my God, I love it. Like, what do I need to do? So, I mean, that's the problem, right? That's the problem, is that the motivation is external. It's not internal. But what happens is that's okay, because sometimes, even me, when I was growing up, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't have internal motivation. I had internal fire, but it wasn't motivation, meaning like I knew I didn't want to be poor, but I wasn't motivated to change the world. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I allowed my external motivation to eventually convert to internal motivation. So it's okay to sometimes get people hooked, on something that may seem vain or stupid, because the content, the teaching is so real and good that it doesn't really matter how they got there to begin with. Does that make sense? Even if they needed to get a taste of what other people had given them the belief they would get, right? Like, in other words, right? If the marketers are leveraging the lifestyle to persuade people to buy garbage, then why can't the teachers leverage the real lifestyle to also get them to not buy garbage, but actually learn something real? I had a good friend of mine when I wrote the Third Circle Theory is my 11th book. And, I had 10 books before that didn't do as well because I never read a book in my life. So I was learning how to write one, never reading one. It would have probably helped, but I never did. And one of the things he told me once, I was asking him what I should put on the cover of my book. Should I put this? Should I put that? Whatever. And he says to me, he goes, well, put whatever is going to get people to buy the book. And I'm like, well, what if it's not relevant to the book? What if it's not what if my book is about purpose and passion? Why would I want to put a Lamborghini on the cover or some crazy lifestyle thing? And he's like, listen, who cares what's on the cover? As long as they get the book, then what is in the book is what's real, right? So he goes, how good is a book no one's reading? Right? Like, so he's like, so if you want to get people to read it, sometimes you got to get out of your comfort zone and be willing to portray what people think they want, right? To be able to change their mind once they actually get in and show them what they really need. So, ultimately, he gave me a really good bridge to understanding this gap between marketing and teaching that I think over the years, again, this wasn't overnight, but I think over the years, I've kind of find my balance between kind of like not only the voice I needed to have, but also the angle I needed to provide the same type of teaching to get people to kind of buy into it. But once they're in it, 90% plus of the people that kind of interact with one of my courses or teachings are at the end of the day like a lifelong student, come back and get more courses because the teaching is real and the things we teach actually work. They're not just how to make money tomorrow morning. I don't teach that.
I love it. No, I love it. I love it. And I think I love how you just said that just however they want to get it, let them just give it to them that way. That's basically what I heard you say. And just give it to them that way. And then when they really sink their teeth into it, they're going to feel it and it's going to be game over for them. And so that was something that I struggled with a lot because I was like, is this ethical? Am I lying to them? All these things come in your head, right? And then, finally I just said, listen, I'm just going to show them. I'm just gonna take them behind the scenes and show them.
Well, yeah, but look, I give you a really good example of marketing. So this is something I analyze people and their marketing strategies, and something that'll make you laugh a little bit. Like, this is the way marketing. So marketing is not a lie, right? Marketing is a shift of perception. Like, in other words, you don't have to lie to people. Like, I've never lied to people like, hey, I have this house or these cars, but it's all rented and it's just there for the moment. So it's a lie, right? Like, I don't lie to people like that. But there is marketers out there that are very good at what they do. Like, I know a very famous marketer we all know, which I'm going to leave nameless. And one of his big pickup lines was, it wasn't too long ago that I only had $47 to my name and I used to sleep on a couch. So if we think about that, then the perceived notion is that it wasn't too long ago that I was very poor with $47 in my bank account and that I didn't have a place to stay, so I lived on a couch, right? That's a perceived marketing message, meaning that's not what he said, that's what we understood because we interpreted the information that way. The individual only said it wasn't too long ago that I had $47 in my bank account. Now, he didn't say that's the only $47 I had in my bank account. He said I had a bank account with $47 in it. Nope. He could have had 40 different bank accounts, one of which had $10 million in it, but one had $47 in it. So it's not a lie, right? And it wasn't too long ago that I was sleeping on a couch. And look, I have friends that live in $30 million houses and somehow end up sleeping on the couch one day, right? So is it a lie for someone to say, one of my bank accounts had $47 and I used to sleep on a couch for 3 days in a row? Maybe your bed was, damaged. You didn't want to sleep on it, or you had a fight with your wife, whatever it was, right? But the point is, marketing is just a message. It is then interpreted differently because it is positioned to be interpreted as such by those that it is targeting. So obviously the person was not targeting super wealthy people who were concerned about his well-being sleeping on a couch, right? He was targeting people who could relate to that because they, in truth, are in that same situation. They don't have any money to their name and they don't have a place to call their home. So that's what the message was. It was supposed to get people that felt that way to interpret it exactly as such. Yeah. But it was not a lie in nature because there is no way to prove, at that very moment, that even if you said the guy was a multimillionaire, which he was at the time he said that, even in the fact that he had a very large home and came from really wealthy people, as far as family, it's still a very clever marketing message because it resonates with those that need it, right? To then interpret it as such. But it's not really a lie in essence, because if you even claim he lied, he simply showed you a piece of the truth that you interpreted as such, that he never actually said, listen, this was all I had. I'm completely broke. I have nothing left. And I have $47 before I have to figure out how to feed my kid. That's a very different statement than saying it wasn't too long ago that I had $47 to my name,
That's it. I love it, man. That makes so pay attention. Pay attention to the nuances in the marketing message. That's what I'm getting from you. And then the other thing is it's not a lie. It's not a lie. It's how you want to position the message.
And it's how you interpret the information. So just don't mistake the fact that how you interpret the information does not create the ultimate truth. You know what I mean? Yes. There's no such thing in life as like an absolute truth. There's only perception of what truth is, because we all come from different backgrounds at different times. So we all perceive truths differently, right? Like we all look at facts differently. I mean, we see this in our political system all day, right? Like one person saying this, one person saying that. One person agrees with that fact, the other one disagrees with it. Someone calls it fake. So the point is, our backgrounds make us interpret information or accept information differently. And so marketers are just very good at doing that. So, the message out there to anybody listening who's a teacher out there, pay closer attention to how marketers convince others to join their bullshit when you have the opportunity to use a similar strategy to convince people to join your cause, which are two completely different things. Cause and marketing are completely different things. And I think people need to not only pay attention as customers, but I think teachers should start paying attention to how they teach.
Yeah, I love it. No, I love it. I love it. So how can people find you, and where do you want to direct people to gather your content and to gather your products and services?
So people will like me for different reasons, which is okay. Some people like me for cars, some people for watches, some people for wealth training, some people for entrepreneurship. The best place to kind of get to know a little bit of everything I do is by going to learnfrompj.com. It's a very simple URL. And that's not my website, but it has 3 of the core kind of platforms I've built around education. One around business, one around creating income through luxury assets, and the other one's through exotic cars, and a community for exotic car owners or people who are going to become exotic car owners. So if you want to learn how to be an entrepreneur, learn how to own an exotic or how to trade watches, doesn't matter what you want to do, one way or another, that's a good site to get started. And you can also, of course, reach me there, as well as pick up books and everything else all from one site.
That's awesome. BJ, I want to thank you so much for spending the hour with us today, sharing your insight, sharing your expertise, sharing your experiences, and just dropping that knowledge and teaching folks how to successfully grow a business. And I love how you distinguished brand and business and separated the two, because they're two very different things. I love how you separated an entrepreneur from a business owner. I love how you said that sometimes things aren't sexy, and the way you perceive things is the way you want people to perceive things sometimes is the way to get them in. But at the end of the day, if you're dropping products and services to people and they are getting great results and they could take action on the stuff right away and see those results, that's the bottom line. And so I appreciate you for having a no bullshit product and service and getting out there and just being you and staying in your lane and mastering your craft. I mean, you are a true essence of what a real entrepreneur is, and real recognizes real, buddy. So
I appreciate you, buddy. I appreciate you having me on the show too. Thanks again for letting me spread some wisdom to your people.
Nah, you got it, man. You got it. So there you have it, guys. Real quick, just to wrap this up. If you haven't shared this podcast, if you haven't subscribed to this podcast yet, please do so. And I appreciate you in advance. And if you get a second, if you like what you heard today, please write a quick review. I would totally appreciate that. And if you have any questions or comments, you guys know how to get me on social media. Just drop me a PM, DM, email, however. And if you want me to showcase any sort of topics or challenges or problems that you're facing that you want me to address on the show, I'll be happy to do that. But you got to shoot me a message to let me know what that is. So I appreciate everybody that was on Facebook Live today. I appreciate everybody that tunes in on a regular basis. Without you guys, this podcast wouldn't be, and the Brand Doctor wouldn't be. So have an awesome day, guys, and I will continue to drop as much value and shed some light and guidance to help you build a better brand and a better business as much as I can. So have an awesome day, guys, and I'll catch you on the next episode.
You've been listening to the Brand Doctor Podcast with Henry Kaminski Jr. To get your appointment with the doctor, visit Brand Audit at www.uniquedesignz.net.